Hi, this is Billy Tarasio from Modern Law Practice, and today I am so excited to be joined by Jennifer Longtin.
Hi, I'm
Hi,
so
Jen.
happy to be here.
So, Jen is an expert in the field of mental health. She is a lawyer and a law firm owner in Denver and owns a criminal defense firm that is doing a lot of cool things. And I know that I see a lot of mental health issues that come up in day to day in running a law firm with my employees and with my clients. And so I'm really excited to talk to Jen and get your insights about how to best do that.
I would love to talk about it. That's my whole practice these days is mental health criminal defense. So
So, how did you even get into this?
I was a public defender for 3 years, 2.5, 3 years, and I dealt with a lot of individuals who had serious mental illness, and I always really enjoyed that aspect of my practice. I felt like I made connections where other attorneys I knew kind of struggled with it, and it just came naturally to me. I have a theater background and I used to have to deal with actors, so that might be part of it. But I really enjoyed it. And when I left and I started my own private practice, our state runs a conflict council for the public defenders called Alternate Defense Counsel. And I'm one of their contractors, and they really needed someone to do mental health specific criminal defense. And I wanted to learn. So they really trained me up, and I have been doing it ever since.
Okay, fantastic. So, what are some of the ways that representing people who have a mental illness? I shouldn't even say who are mentally ill. It's really who have a mental illness.
Yeah, it's like I am a person that has diabetes. I am
Right,
a person that has schizophrenia. I'm not a schizophrenic or a diabetic. It
right,
means a little something different. It's not your whole life or personality.
right. We're more than our mental illness. And I especially see this with employees because a lot of my employees do struggle with depression or anxiety or other types of mental illness that will cause them to go through periods of time where they require different things from me as a boss.
Hmm.
And I know I'm jumping all over the place a little bit, but why don't we start there? Why don't we start with
Sure.
how do we address and support employees? And when is it better to let them go, and when can you work through it?
I think that one of the places that I start, I've been reading Radical Candor, which is great, and I love it. And I think one of the main premises of that book that's really important to me is that the biggest part of being a manager is actually managing people and
Mm-hmm.
understand where they're coming from. And when you walk into the office, it's not a distraction to stop and talk to your employees and see where they are in their lives right now. It's your job as a
Right.
boss. And
Mm-hmm.
if you don't embrace that as a first place to start, you don't know who's depressed. You don't know who's having problems at home. And it's not like your employees have to share that information with you, but I'll say at our office, we have a culture of openness. We really care for each other. I had an employee who had to go out for 2 months for a serious medical surgery. We all took care of her. I have had employees go through bouts of depression, and we have stepped up. I wear my sunglasses because I had a concussion a year ago and I had 3 months medical leave, and it was really scary, but everyone stepped up to support me. So I think that first is forming that culture of caring within your own firm and making sure that everybody has each other's back. But beyond that, I think there are some little things that are important that you can put into place. If someone comes to me and says, I'm having a panic attack, I need a mental health day, like I don't question them. I think there are employers that will not question having the flu, but question just needing a day for your brain. And to that extent, I also am suspicious of any employee that does not take a vacation. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I mandate vacation time, and I think that that's really important to take that break. I
Mm-hmm.
know you guys do yoga every Friday, which I love. I have 2 hours of trauma counseling for any of my, employees that need it. We've had some suicides of clients. We've had some pretty severe cases, and I just make sure that they know that they have access to a therapist who's in our building in case they just need to debrief things
Oh,
like
that's
that.
awesome.
Yeah. And I think, all of that can form a network of health. And then there may be a time where someone really needs to take a total step back
Mm-hmm.
and for their own mental health kind of move to a different area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to an extent, I've gone through that too, and it's worked out well. I think as long as you're open and all parties are understanding,
Mm-hmm.
of the factors at play and compassionate about it, then that's all you really need.
I love that. I think that that's spot on. I have one employee who really burned out and was really struggling with anxiety, and she left for a while. But we left on great terms, and then we couldn't live without her, and she came back about 3 years ago, and like it was a beautiful thing. Like, we supported her through something she needed to do, even though it meant leaving us for a little while. Um, and then I've got this other employee who we ended up letting go, who probably, yes, he had mental health issues, but that wasn't the reason he was let go. He was let go because he wasn't a good fit. And I think it's important for us to not confuse the issues. Like, if someone's a good fit, then you can work through their mental illness.
Yeah. And that's back to culture of a law firm, is having a culture that is really well defined and finding people that fit that culture. And then once you find them, really having a culture that involves taking care of them physically, mentally, emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
We deal with some very traumatic stuff, and we need to be able to come in and horse around and joke and be able to support each other when things go terribly wrong. And I think that it's almost easier to have a culture that embraces mental health at a criminal defense firm like mine than I think it would be at something like a estate planning firm or something that's just more even keel on a constant practice. I mean, we have to have good mental health at our firm because the burnout rate of defense attorneys is astronomical. So if I want to keep the people that I've invested so much in training, I better take care of them, or else they're going to wind up, going and working at Whole Foods because they just can't take it anymore.
I love that you said that. I do, because so many of the law firms that we work with struggle with turnover. And I really think it comes down to the issue that you're talking about, which is culture fit, and taking care of your employees. And the first concept you said, which is Radical Candor, a book I love. Like, our job is to invest in our employees. And when we start thinking about serving our clients the same way we serve, or serving our employees the same way we serve our clients.
Yeah. That was a radical shift for me in the last year, because I was really focused on how I was serving the clients. And I realized that I was serving the clients in some ways and bending over backwards to serve them in ways that were a detriment to my employees. And so I've been trying to find a really good balance about that, because I really care about the people that work with me. I think that is the most important thing you can have in a firm.
I totally agree with you. I had the exact same experience. It's easy for us to know that we have to take care of our clients because they pay us and we need them, but we can't operate without our employees.
No, they're more important.
Really
there are lots of clients out there.
The
number of attorneys that can actually do what I want them to do and fit in with our quirky little nerdy office culture is very limited.
Right. So that makes perfect sense to me. It is harder to serve clients with mental illness. They seem to blow through budgets, run out of money, desperately need help, and then kind of reject the help we want to give. So how can we handle that better?
So just my first two reactions based on what you just said. I tell clients when they're entering into a mental health case, just up front, that it's going to take on average at least twice as long and be on average at least twice as much as what a regular case would be. Now, I'll talk to you in a little bit about some of the things we're doing at our firm to try and help people through that and make the representation more reasonable. But these cases require records gathering and evaluations and experts and lots of client handholding. And especially if you get some more personality-driven disorders like borderline personality disorder, or I hate antisocial personality disorder because every one of my clients gets diagnosed with it. But stuff like that can involve a lot of phone calls. I mean, we have burned through many minutes on our remote. We use Ruby right now, our remote receptionist. Like, it's been expensive. And so you have to plan ahead for that kind of stuff. Secondarily, it's really important to understand when your client has mental health issues, what those are. Because first of all, traumatic brain injury, developmental disability, PTSD, they're going to have very different reactions than someone with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, which is going to have different reactions from someone with a personality disorder like borderline. And so once you understand a little bit about what their diagnosis is, I find it very helpful to strategize my communications around their strengths and not their weaknesses. So like if someone has paranoia, I will make sure that I let them know a couple days in advance that I'm coming to see them. Or if we have turnover at our office, I'll make sure to let them know that there's a new person answering the phone. And that way, if you front end that kind of stuff, it reduces a lot of the issues. The other big thing though, is I've even had clients where we actually contracted for communication. So because a client was burning through all their retainer with 10 emails a day, we developed a strategy where there was one specific form of communication that we all agreed was going to be the one that we were going to focus on and answer, and that we were not necessarily going to look at the rest of them. And if he wanted to vent in order to just get something off his chest, he could still send it through, but we weren't going to look at it and we weren't going to charge him for it.
Nice.
And we actually signed a contract with both of us. So he knew that and we knew that, and it wound up saving him a lot of money. Now, that's not right for everybody, but I'm rambling on. But as to your last thing, where you said some people want the help and then reject it.
Right.
I think the most important thing to realize is, especially when you're dealing with someone who has one of the major disorders like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, especially, a lack of self-awareness of one's illness is actually a symptom. It's a symptom, just like, high sugar levels and diabetic coma is a symptom of diabetes. It's not something that the person can control. And that's really hard. And it's really hard to work with, because you build up and all of a sudden they don't agree with you because they're not mentally ill and they don't need treatment and they don't need help in that way. But that's an actual symptom of the illness. It's not just someone being obstinate or angry or messing with you.
So just, I hear what you're saying is just be educated and then creative and design a plan around their specific needs. That's kind of brilliant.
I would really recommend anyone who does criminal defense or family law. I could see some other areas where it would be important too, but you should have a DSM-5 in your office. That's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. It's basically all the diagnostic codes for mental health disorders. It's not perfect. There are many people who take issue with it, and it's very bare bones, but it'll tell you what the symptoms are, what the prognosis is, what different lifestyle factors can be for different disorders. So that way, if someone walks in and says, I have schizoaffective disorder, you can actually look it up and see what that means. Yeah,
that's a great idea. As opposed to Googling it or thinking about that neighbor that one time told you about blah, blah, blah.
Right. I will say NAMI.org has some pretty good definitions. Mental Health Colorado does for those in state, but there are some decent websites where you can find that information. But I love the DSM-5 way.
Yeah. Well, those are amazing tips, and this is a great start. Why don't you tell me about some of the other things that you're doing at your firm?
So we're trying to design a bunch of new programs around aiding the families of those who have been accused of a crime and have mental illness. So for example, Joe is schizophrenic. Joe has been arrested and is in custody in the local jail. He's incompetent to proceed, and he's represented by the public defender. Now, the public defender won't talk to Joe's mom and dad because of attorney-client privilege. And mom and dad don't know how to navigate the system enough to be able to still help. And so what we do is we have a family consulting package where we go see Joe and consult and see if everything's okay, and maybe he wants to take us on as an attorney. And that's one option. We come on the case and we represent the defendant. But the other option is we keep working for the family as a part of this flat fee package and make some calls to the public defender and make some calls to the DA and maybe show up at a court appearance and kind of let the court know what's going on, while always keeping in mind that we don't want to do anything that hurts the defendant in any way. So that's one of our packages. The other ones have to do with records gathering.
Mm-hmm.
So if the family wants us to gather all the records and prepare a mitigation package that then they can just hand to the public defender, that's going to give their loved one a lot better representation, and something that the public defender would love to do. We have great PDs in the state, but they just don't have time. And so we do that. Sometimes we'll jump on just for a sentencing.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll say, you know, the plea looks okay, let the public defender do that. And then we'll jump on and do sentencing that really explains the mental health aspects, especially if it's an open sentencing range where you have something like 5 to 25 years. You really want to make sure that you're bringing up all that mental health information. We also do consulting for other attorneys in town so they can keep their cases, but we just kind of come on and let them know what's going on with competency or mental health defenses. And we have all the motions and writing on it already done. So it saves a lot of time in the end for the client.
That's awesome. So I'm going to definitely put your contact information in the notes and description of this vlog. And thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, this was awesome.
Yeah.
I love chatting.
Always.